All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for tuning in today. And this is an educational channel. And we have a segment here that is called Your Blind Side. And it is for you Patriot Truthers out there. And it is just a heads up on things that you might be missing. I know that you're involved in important digs, important research for the info war, but you may not be looking at the big picture. You may not see certain developments that are kind of outside your purview. And this is just to give you a little bit of a heads up. And I've been focused a lot on religion, and today will be no exception. But I do believe that this movement, for it to be successful ultimately, because I see its success in terms of defeating the globalists as being imminent, but success ultimately, like, when you succeed in overthrowing the globalists, then you will be in control. And being in control is a lot different than being the challenger. Because if you're in control, then you have to have answers. You can't just complain about the answers. You have to have answers that are um, applicable. And Christianity is not one of those answers. That's not going to work going forward, in my opinion, because it is something that a serious truther cannot take seriously. These are nursery rhymes, um, and they are formulaic. These are things that all, um, now, if you want to be fundamentalist about it, um, that's your choice, and that is up to your faith. But that is not the truth, and that is not a truther movement. That is a fundamentalist movement, and that is, going to take us back to the Middle Ages or maybe even before that. We'll be doing the witch burnings and the crusades and the inquisitions and the crucifixions or the, I guess, um, other forms of torture, the flaying and the uh, impaling. But if we want to move forward on the basis of truth, I think deism is a much more useful uh, standard. That is the belief in one God who is good. And this God has endowed the humans with higher mental faculties and spiritual faculties such as reason, wonderment, curiosity, aesthetics. Um, and these are things, inspiration, uh, intuition, creativity. And these are things that allow the human being to uh, behold God's universe in all its, um, you know, nature and its laws that it complies with, physics, math, and geometry, and um, beauty. And these are things that allow the human being to understand God directly. And that direct understanding of God is the key uh, development that we need here to move forward. We don't need priests, pastors, and rabbis to tell us, and popes to tell us what religion is about. And we don't need books. to tell us these things either. These things are available to all of us directly. And um, the books are just complicating factors. And they, again, are just nursery rhymes. Uh, y- if you don't want to be a fundamentalist about it and you want to look at this in a serious manner with a truther approach, then you have to recognize that all of this, all of the ancient stories tell the same story. It's a formula. It's a ready-made script, a template. The Gospels are not unique. They are just like all the other stories from that time period where there is a Son of God, and the Son of God comes down and he does miracles and healings and miraculous uh, walking on water and um, expelling demons and healing the blind, and then gets unjustly uh, uh, executed, and that causes him to go back to heaven, and uh, you know, the resurrection is attended by other miracles. And this is a story that is in dozens and dozens and dozens of other older stories. It is not anything original, it is not anything unique, and it is not something to found a religion on. Not a truth or religion anyway. If you want to follow that, go ahead, but just don't call yourself a truther because that's not what you're concerned about. You're concerned about your salvation. That's fine, but that's not what this movement is about, is what, as far as I could uh, discern. That's not what I was told. That's not what I've been told. Um, so that is um, what I would say. The deism is you know something that is much more um, direct. Now, uh, what I also would like to mention here on this day is just to give you a cheat code here for your Easter. This is coming from Joseph Atwill's book Caesar's Messiah, the riddle of the empty tomb. I think it's the puzzle of the empty tomb. The four Gospels each give a different time for the first visit to Jesus' tomb, though they all agree that a character named Mary Magdalene is the first visitor. The four Gospels also contradict one another about whether Mary Magdalene is alone when she first comes to the tomb, and about how many individuals are either inside or outside the tomb when she arrives. Since I had already realized that there is nothing inadvertent in the Gospels. Now, keep in mind that Atwill believes that the Gospels are written by the Romans and that it's a psychological operation against the Jews. Since I had already realized that there's nothing inadvertent in the Gospels, I wondered about the purpose of these contradictions. My efforts to answer this question led me to discover another, more logical way to understand the New Testament stories of Jesus' resurrection. And this is that the four versions create one story that should be read intertextually. So, in order to understand the resurrection story, you have to read all four of them together, all four of the gospel stories together. And you have to read them in the correct order, which is John first, and then Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I mean, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Um, because that the code is in the when they get to the tomb. Um, John is still dark, and then the subsequent synoptic gospels occur in order. It's the sun is just coming up, and the sun's getting ready to come up, and then the sun is up in Luke. Okay, so this reading reveals that Jesus does not rise from the dead. Rather, Mary Magdalene simply mistakes Lazarus's empty tomb for the tomb of Jesus. This misunderstanding then sets off a comedy of errors during which the disciples mistakenly mistake one another for angels and thereby delude themselves into believing that their Messiah has risen from the dead. This combined story also completes the joke I discussed last chapter that since the real Messiah, Lazarus, has been eaten, because Lazarus never was resurrected, he was taken out by Jesus out of the tomb as a dead body, and he was taken home and roasted. And they say they made him a supper. This is a cannibalistic joke that you guys are falling for. You're being mocked and ridiculed. Okay, the real Messiah, Lazarus, has been eaten. They ate the good portion. His tomb is therefore empty. To understand this combined story is quite simple, requiring only that the reader think logically. Now, we start with the four Gospels, and, in Matthew, it says it began to dawn toward the first day of the week. It began to dawn. Um, and then Mark says very early in the morning, and then Luke says very early in the morning. I think there's there's some type of variation in the language that makes Luke come after Mark, but then John says and it was still dark, and so that's the order that you put them in. And when you do that, everything kind of falls into place, and you're able to see that, the first people that come to the tomb, they will see one person inside the tomb, and then the next group comes and there's two people in the tomb, and the next person comes and there's not any people in the tomb. So John says it was yet dark. So John is what starts first. Um, and so then it says, then she runneth and cometh to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and saith to them, and all this is kind of, mysterious language to encourage the puzzle. And the Romans loved doing this kind of stuff. This was a big amusement for them, to these enigmas, puzzles, and codes. And they put all of this into the New Testament for the purposes of not only their amusement and also to ridicule the Jews, but eventually to, tame and domesticate the Jews, because the Jesus that they're, um, you know, creating here is a Prince of Peace and one who believes in rendering unto Caesar's, and he doesn't do anything against the Romans throughout the entire Gospels. Even though I hear truthers telling me that he's a disruptor, he disrupted nothing. The only thing that he disrupted was the Jewish traditions and rituals. But as far as the occupying power, who the uh, Old Testament books prophecy that the Jewish Messiah was coming to deliver the Jews from the occupying power, in this case, the Romans. Jesus does nothing, zero, nothing at all in the entire New Testament. But he sure does disrupt the Jews, almost like he was written by the Romans, tailor made for what the Romans would have wanted him to do. So he is not any type of a disruptor. He is what you would maybe call a cancer within the Jewish, society. because he's criticizing and calling hypocrites everybody that is following the Jewish traditions and rituals. And he's basically streamlining them into the Roman, to becoming more like the Romans. So I have done a presentation on this, which is called the Resurrection Decoded. So if you'd like a longer version of exactly how this script goes down, going through all the Bible verses and going through the whole story, it basically turns the story of the resurrection into a Three's Company episode where there is just a series of misunderstandings and a comedy of errors where um, you know all of these very credulous people are mistaking each other for angels and for um, you know they see each other, but they see each other in shining garments and makes them think that they're angels as opposed to so basically it's showing how credulous these people are and that they're willing to you know um, take absolutely normal circumstances and invest uh, them with this incredible supernatural meaning. And so if you want to check that out, it's under the name of Resurrection Decoded. I think I did it about 2 years ago. Um, but that's just the basics. If you want to just do it yourself, you can now also do it. You have to start with John, and then you go to Matthew, and then you go to Mark, and then you go to Luke. And in that order, you will see that the comedy of errors begins to unfold. And meaning that the whole story of the resurrection is nothing but a big joke at your expense. And you can worship it at your peril. Okay, that is all I have to say today for the episode Your Blind Side. This is, again, a warning for you. Heads up. Um, don't get influenced by this uh, fundamentalist non-truth, fundamentalist anti-truth that is creeping all over this movement and that needs to be tamped down before we go anywhere. Um, so like, share, subscribe, comment, and contribute, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.